Huawei might have just found a way to fight back against one of the biggest problems it has faced for years. And honestly, this is a lot bigger than it sounds. For a long time, the United States has blocked China from getting the world's most advanced chip-making machines. These machines are made by a company called ASML, and they are needed to make the smallest and most powerful chips. Without these machines, many people believed that Chinese companies like Huawei would fall behind. But now, Huawei is saying, maybe we don't need those machines after all. And that is where things start getting really interesting. Right now, the most advanced chips are made using extremely tiny transistors. Think of transistors like tiny switches inside a chip. The more switches you can fit into a small space, the faster and more powerful the chip becomes. For years, the industry has followed a simple idea: make transistors smaller, then make them even smaller again. That is basically how smartphones, computers, and AI systems became so powerful. The problem is that shrinking transistors forever is almost impossible. At some point, they become so tiny that physics itself becomes a problem. This is why many experts believe the industry is reaching its limits. But Huawei is looking at the problem from a completely different angle. Instead of asking, how can we make transistors smaller, Huawei is asking, how can we make signals travel faster? That might sound simple, but it changes everything. Last month, Huawei introduced something called LogicFolding. Don't worry about the complicated name. The basic idea is actually easy to understand. Imagine you live in a city. If you need to travel across the whole city to get to work, it takes time. But if your workplace is in the same building, you arrive much faster. That is exactly what Huawei is trying to do inside a chip. Normally, circuits are spread out across a flat surface. Signals have to travel longer distances. The longer they travel, the more delays you get. Huawei's solution is to stack circuits on top of each other. Instead of building outward, they build upward, like turning a one-story house into a skyscraper. Because everything is closer together, signals travel shorter distances. That means less delay, more speed, and better performance. This new design is called LogicFolding. Huawei says this method can create chip designs with transistor density similar to what we would expect from a 1.4 nanometer chip. Now, that number is important. Today, the world's leading chip companies are still working toward that level. TSMC is expected to start making 1.4 nanometer chips around 2028. But Huawei believes its new method could achieve similar density without relying on the most advanced EUV machines. If that turns out to be true, it would be a massive achievement. Of course, not everyone believes it. Whenever a company makes a huge claim like this, there will always be people who are skeptical. And honestly, that is normal. Making advanced chips is one of the hardest things humans do, so people naturally want proof. But here's the interesting part. A respected chip scientist from the University of California, San Diego, Andrew Kang, says Huawei's plan is actually viable. In simple words, he believes the idea can work. That doesn't mean success is guaranteed, but it means the science behind it makes sense. And that is a very big deal. Huawei also says it has already used this method in hundreds of chip designs. That suggests this is not just a concept on paper, they are actively working on it. What makes this story even more important is what it could mean for the future of technology. For decades, the chip industry followed something called Moore's Law. The idea was simple. Every couple of years, chips would become much more powerful because engineers could fit more transistors into them. That prediction worked amazingly well for decades. But now, the industry is getting close to the physical limits of shrinking transistors. Many experts have wondered what comes next. If we can't keep making transistors smaller, how do we keep improving chips? Huawei's LogicFolding could be one possible answer. Instead of focusing only on smaller transistors, future chip makers could focus on smarter designs, shorter paths, less delay, better efficiency, more performance. And if that works, it could change how chips are designed for years to come. Now, we are still far from knowing whether Huawei can fully deliver on these promises. Building a working chip in a lab is one thing. Mass-producing millions of chips is another challenge entirely. But one thing is clear. Huawei is no longer sitting around waiting for restrictions to disappear. The company is trying to create a completely new path forward. And if LogicFolding succeeds, it could become one of the most important chip innovations of the next decade. So the big question is this: can Huawei really compete with the world's best chip makers without access to advanced EUV machines? Right now, nobody knows for sure, but for the first time in a long time, the answer doesn't seem impossible. And that alone is what makes this story so fascinating to watch.